All right, pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubitz, and I have to start on a little bit of an offbeat pattern here because thank God my mother was wrong about this, Lubie. Thank God she was wrong. I love my mother. She passed away a couple of years ago. She almost made it to the magic number of 98. Lived a great life, was a terrific woman. Couldn't have been any better. I couldn't have been any more grateful or thankful that my parents were who they were. I love my mother. I love my father. But she was wrong about this, thank goodness. And that is that a certain activity that you would become fairly, prolific at in terms of the frequency with which you use this behavior and also the effectiveness of it. She did maintain whenever she happened to peek into the room there and catch you in the act. She did maintain that it could lead to blindness. Did you live under these same
Oh no,
murky circumstances, Luby?
I never got
Because if masturbation could have led to blindness, let's put it this way: if the
that's
internet
true.
had been around when I was in my teens,
Yeah.
or at any portion of time for that matter, but going way back, I would have masturbated myself to death. I really would have. Thank God we didn't have that level of stimulation at that time. You had to use your imagination and
Yeah.
visualization and
Oh, that's
things
so
like
funny.
that, whatever it was to inspire you. But certainly didn't make you go blind. And you're thinking, well, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Why is he going off on this? There's so many things happening in the world of sports. But it
Yeah.
seems like the big news is this total eclipse that's taking place on Monday, Libby. Are you following the story there? Because people are traveling from all over the world to get to certain key points so that they can view this thing. But is it true that you really need like those funky 7-Eleven glasses
Oh, I don't know. Oh, this
to
is one
view
of those where you
this?
can look at it or whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you go blind if you look at the eclipse? Is
I
that the deal?
never look at the sun much, so I don't think it would affect me. I don't know. I guess if you want to be able to see it, to look at it, you need certain glass. I don't know.
What
I
is the
remember when I was
deal on
young.
that?
Remember when I was young, they had one of these. So I don't know. I guess they don't have them very often. It's just how informed I
It's an
am.
infrequent development. I mean, literally, people are paying millions of dollars to fly to obscure locations, outer bastions of wilderness, somewhere in Indiana or Texas, so they can get the best view of this deal. But if it does cause some kind of eye damage, I don't know. Wouldn't your first inclination to be, hey, what are you kidding me? I'm going to wear those ridiculous glasses. Let me just look at this thing.
Yeah.
So, how careful do you have to be? That's the question. Now, in the case of my mother and relative to that particular self gratifying activity, thank goodness, man, because I wouldn't be able to see shit if that was the case, if she was right about that. All right, a lot of things happening in the sporting world, and not the least of which is our quest to see the Miami Marlins finish under 79 victories for the season. And how beautiful does it get, Louie? Every single day they lose. They look horrible. This guy Bendix that came over from the Tampa Bay Rays, taking over for Kim Eng, who could have easily been the executive of the year last year for getting the Marlins, the lowly Marlins, the decrepit, impoverished Marlins into the postseason in a regular 162 game season. They did make it for like the first time in 20 years in that hybrid COVID season, where Don Mattingly got him into the postseason with like 30 victories in the 62 games or whatever it was. But none, and they won a round of the playoffs that year as they beat the Cubs. So it looked like they might have been on the rise. Next thing you know, Mattingly's gone. Donnie Baseball. We fired Donnie Baseball. And maybe it was time. Skip Schumacher comes in
Schumacher
as the
did a good job.
manager of the Marlins. What's that?
Schumacher did a good job. I'm not mad at
Yeah.
Schumacher. The Kim Eng move was the one we didn't understand. And we look right now.
How great was this? And we talked about this because we couldn't have been any happier that there's nothing better than accurate inside information. Not talking about insider trading on the stock market or anything like that, but let's face it, it is very beneficial and has been for many people. But in this case, this is in the biggest. You cannot call this a no risk investment, right? I mean, you don't want to go on ESPN and start talking about, well, you know what, I got a sure thing for you. That turns and looms as a large mistake to think that way. And maybe we're going to jinx this by talking about this on the show here. But what we like to follow it, I mean, if you're going to make a season long bet, you have to wait till the end of the year or close to it. I don't know. Will we have this ticket cashed by the All-Star game, Louie?
Oh,
Will
yeah.
the Marlins be
I'll do it.
mathematically eliminated from winning 79 games by the All-Star break? That's tough.
0-7. They're 0-7.
0-7 to start the season. Now we've seen worse treachery to begin of year. No team, they're already bringing out these kind of statistics and analytic results. No team has started a season 0-7 and made the postseason, Louis. But I would imagine very few teams have started their campaign at 0-7. The Orioles of, what was it, 1988? Was that the year that Frank Robinson was the manager of the Orioles? And they ended up, 88. The 88 Orioles lost their first 21 games. Remember that?
Yes.
That was ugly. 21 games, hopelessly out of it. Marlins are on the road today, but we'll be tracking this all season long because it's not the money, Lubie, is it? I don't have the patience normally. I never make these kind of proposition bets. Do you? Season-long proposition bets. Over-under totals. Very popular in the NFL. I guess in all sports, right? I mean, if you're looking at basketball and the NBA, are you inclined to even look at or just navigate your way through early in the season, get an idea of what people think about various teams, to peruse the over/under total numbers, expectations that the odds makers put out? Do you ever take a look at that? Because I always do. I find a great curiosity in seeing what the assessment is of teams, and a lot of it is based on what they did the previous year, and a lot of things can change. Now, in the case of the Marlins, nothing changed except they lost some of their firepower and did nothing to compensate for it. Nothing, zero. They didn't get more offense. They didn't get more pitching. They have just holes all over the place, the size of an O.J. Simpson alibi. I mean, a lot of holes in this team. And they did nothing to address it except they brought in a new guy. They fired their general manager, as we said, Kim Ng, who could have been the general manager of the year, executive of the year. Brought in Berger, brought in Bell, brought him into the postseason with a couple of late season moves. Is that not what you're looking for, Brian Cashman? A couple of late season moves that actually pay off?
Yes.
That don't leave you stuck paying a giant tab. You have nothing to work with virtually in the situation that she was in. So, of course, they let her go, and they bring in this guy who looks like Jonah Hill, doesn't he? This new guy they brought in, he's sitting in the stands there sucking on a lollipop while the Marlins are 0-7. You're thinking, this is beautiful.
The thing they keep focusing on, and look, I get it. The Houston Astros and the Dodgers and the Red Sox, before they started to suck, built a farm system, and that led to lots of success. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. This is now the second time in the last 5 years or 6 years that they've said, we're going to get rid of talent and build a farm system. That's what Jeter's whole thing was. Within 4 years, Jeter was gone. They were a fucking disaster. Kim Ng takes the parts they had, brought some new parts in, built an actual playoff team with hopes going into the next season, and they get rid of her, bring in a guy from the Rays because she was not good at building a farm system. That was she didn't draft things, and she didn't. But again, she was only here like 2 years. So who the fuck was she supposed to draft in 2 years? But fine, she didn't draft. That was not her specialty. Let's bring in someone supposedly to help her draft, but she saw that as a slight, which it was. And she said, screw this. She left. The guy you bring in lets whoever go and brings in no one, and openly lets it known that all the good players are on the trading block, except for Yuri Perez, who's already been hurt multiple times in his 2-year career.
Yeah.
And now they're 0-7. So it's like, guys, maybe play with the talent you have and build around that and stop fucking worrying about building a farm system, because you have no idea what the hell you're doing in that regard.
Perez was barely a developed embryo, and he already had his second Tommy John surgery.
Yeah,
So you're basing an awful lot of your hopes on somebody that seems to be fragile at best. But anyway, the 0-7 start, we're delighting in it. They are on the road against St. Louis. We'll be tracking this all season long. The under with the Miami Marlins, the best piece of inside information I think we've ever received. It was just when I had to consider the source of this, there was no way that this person would ever acknowledge that there was no hope whatsoever. He had thrown in the towel, man. It was round 12, Costa Zoo. Ricky, don't call me Fat and Hatton. And you're stunned as you're watching the fight to see, what? Zoo's not getting up. It was Thrill in Manila there, where Joe Frazier, Eddie Futch with that little wave, and it's all over. I believe it's all over. And it's only a question of time before we go there and cash the ticket. I don't have the patience for this sort of thing, though, Louie. I want to cash it right now, don't you? Can we sell this off to some hedge betting site or something? Probably wouldn't get much money on that right now. But let's not get over anxious here. But I'm the guy that has to, you see that. I have to bet every race at the track. It doesn't matter. Are they off at Laurel in a minute? Okay, here we go. All of a sudden, I'm an expert in Maryland racing. Holy Jim McKay. All right, so baseball, though, Yankees, euphoric. Yankee fans, 6-1 start there. And they got Aaron Judge off to a decent start, especially yesterday, redeemed himself in yesterday's game. The Mets 0-4. They're already crying. and sobbing. They gave faint hope to maybe having some kind of a resurrection this year after a disastrous season a year ago. They got rid of a lot of high-priced ball players, and they went the new route. Isn't that the thing? It's like the Etch-a-Sketch, Lubie, where you just shake the thing, and all of a sudden, you're back to square one. I have started from scratch too many times. I don't know about you, Lubie. How many times have you started from scratch? You're a young man still. But
Once
essentially,
sure, possibly twice.
yeah, I mean, I've started from scratch so many times that this is not uncommon for me. But I know the syndrome because you're right back in the same place that you were just a couple of years later. I mean, they really need to have a better plan. So we'll see if that works out. But Yanks happy, Mets upset. That's the way it's going in New York. And our Pittsburgh Pirates finally sustained a loss yesterday. Now 5-1, but they only have to eclipse 75 victories. If they win 76, we win on both fronts and come out looking pretty smart. All right, big trade in the NFL yesterday. It doesn't come as any big surprise, though. Major surprise, Lubie. Does it? Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills parting ways. Dead cap money has to be an especially large burden for any general manager to contend with. Dead cap money, we're seeing that on a couple of fronts. The Denver Broncos have what is known as dead cap money to the tune of about $40 million with the Russell Wilson thing. And now the Buffalo Bills, who lost a lot of players because they were in a perilous salary cap situation. They had to let a lot of talented guys go. We saw that largely around the league, Lubie, but the Stephon Diggs trade, it's not so much that he left Buffalo because we're here in an AFC Eastern Division city where you'd like nothing better than to see the Buffalo Bills completely derailed and finally knocked off. We were happy to get the Patriots out of there. Miami Dolphin fans certainly have to be happy that the Bills have been compromised, at least to some level, because in spite of the fact that they seem to have at times an adversarial, acrimonious relationship, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs were a hell of a quarterback receiving combination, as good pretty much as anybody that you would see. And that's saying a lot. So we'll see how much their offense is depleted by that. They don't have a great defense, and they lost some key players there off what was a suspect defense at times last year. So Buffalo certainly compromised. But the team that seemed to benefit, how is Houston not going to be a contender this year? That was the big speculation yesterday, was that Stephon Diggs maybe puts the Houston Texans in a position where are they viable contenders to win the AFC, Lubie?
I don't know.
Is that stretching the imagination a little bit?
I think their division. Look, we'll see what the Jags are. Like the Jags were sort of up and down last year. They weren't the team people thought they would be because that division is sort of a mess. But the Texans and the Colts ended up having a nice year, even though they didn't really have their quarterback situation set. So we'll see. We'll see what that division is to make it their life easier or harder. But yeah, they have a good team. Look, they won a playoff game last year. They were pushing the Ravens for a while. And they're a young team. So it's like a young coach, young quarterback. If they did that then, why wouldn't they grow? And they're doing the moves you need to do to ensure a team grows. Yeah, the Texans are right there. I would say they're a top 4 or 5 team in the AFC right now. We'll see what happens in the fucking North. I mean, because the North could be brutal between the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers are going to be hanging around. The West seems like, and we'll see the Chargers, funny, they bring in Harbaugh and then get rid of every offensive weapon. So yeah. I don't know what Herbert's going to be because, now he seems to have the coach and now he doesn't have any help on offense. So the AFC's interesting. There's a lot of teams that have a lot of questions like the Dolphins and the Bills now, but the Texans are right there. I mean, they have a really talented young roster.
By the way, when will you finally be releasing your last mock draft? Okay. Your final draft of the mock draft?
Fuck out of here.
Are you past the second round yet? I don't know. I mean, the people have been clamoring for this, just like they were looking for your Combine Chronicles that we never really released. All right, so Stephon Diggs goes. The mock drafts are all speculating about J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback. Seems to be the wildest subject of speculation as to what he might be, where he might go. I don't know that I'm that thrilled if somebody labels me the next Daniel Jones.
I love it. I think it's great. These teams have gotten so... Look, you need a quarterback, but as you can see, we've seen teams go far without great quarterbacks. So,
yes,
Brock Purdy's a nice quarterback.
I would rather have a great quarterback, though.
Obviously, but...
Yes. Again, I mean, just if I'm a general manager, I would rather have the big-time quarterback than making the story that, hey, you see that? The Ravens won it with Trent Dilfer. That
And that's
ruined it for
why
everybody. It really
they
did when Dilfer won that Super Bowl.
4, and that's why JJ McCarthy is probably going to go top 5, even though he's probably a second-round pick, because all these teams, they need a great quarterback so bad that they reach on these guys that are clearly not great quarterbacks.
All right, real quickly here. Boston, best record in the NBA. They clinched that last night. 135-100 over your man Chet Holmgren and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Unbelievable. They do that at home. They destroy the Thunder in the process. Are you still of the frame of mind that Kristaps Porzingis was an insignificant pickup?
No, I said he was a good pickup. I don't think he'll matter in the playoffs. And that hasn't changed at all. The guy always gets hurt. And
he's looking great. I mean, he really is, Lubie.
Yeah,
he hasn't played every game. He has sat out portions of the season with injury. He goes for 27 and 12 last night. He's playing about 30 minutes a game. He's averaging 20 and a half points a game, 7 rebounds on 51% shooting. 8 straight years, 8 straight seasons, even though he never plays the full 82. That's a certainty. Nobody does anymore, but usually averaging about 40, 50 some odd games a year. But and he did that again this year because he's only played in like 54 or 5 games. But nonetheless, if he's around for the postseason, is Boston, are we overlooking this? Or you just expect the usual chokeometer to come out there and start pinning into the red as soon as they get into the postseason?
I think they're lucky. I think it's worked out for them because they've stayed healthy and everyone else has gotten hurt. So the Bucks made a weird coaching change that totally ended their season. I mean, they're an average team now. So like the Bucks will finish in the top 3. The Bucks will probably be in the conference finals, but they're a total mess. Did they move? It's funny. Like I was upset that he didn't get him because I think that would have put them right there with the Nuggets. I didn't think him going to the Bucks made them as good as people thought it did. I was like, yeah, I guess people will make them a top seed in the East, and they will be, but they're not going to beat the Nuggets. They don't have depth anymore. They're old, really old, and they're a bunch of guys that are injury prone at this point. Like not injury prone, but just older, so they're going to get injured, and that's what it did. So and then they got off to a good start and got rid of their coach for a guy that always finds a way to lose. So, like, they totally made themselves not a real contender to me, to the Celtics. The Magic, like, come on, the Magic, the fucking Cavs, who have a lot of talent, but they're young. The Knicks, even before the injuries, I didn't believe in the Knicks. The Heat, actually, the one team that probably could give the Celtics trouble, but they haven't been healthy the entire year, and Jimmy Butler is playing like a shell of himself for long periods of time. So the Celtics have a cakewalk through the East. So I have not denied that. I think they'll be in the finals. I just think the Nuggets will beat them in 5 games. Like, I don't think they have a shot versus the fucking Nuggets. Like, and I still don't.
Milwaukee looks like a bunch of shot fighters all of a sudden. They're walking around like zombies. Doc Rivers, they'd be better off with Doc Severinsen. Doc Gooden. Dr. Principata, the old mascot guy for the Mets, than Doc Rivers. So that looms and is starting to really look like a rather colossal mistake. A lot of people thought that was going to be the case when they first made that decision. All right, we got the women's Final Four coming up. We'll have some more thoughts on that tomorrow. It would be interesting. Don't sleep on Gino. Is that a good piece of advice? Don't sleep on Gino Auriemma. Does he come up with a way to at least deal with Caitlin Clark? I mean, it did seem like the LSU Kim Mulkey might have made a mistake by leaving the same woman to try and contend with Caitlin Clark the entire. Oh, was it Van Lith? She was a transfer from another school.
Van Lith is really good, but she had no shot. She had no idea what she was doing. And the other girl defended Clark well, but maybe they're worried about her getting in foul trouble. I don't know, but it was a weird coaching decision and it backfired massively.
Gino's not going to make that same mistake, is he? I mean, he's dealt with this kind of situation before. Are we overlooking the fact that Connecticut, only a 2.5-point underdog in this case, that also features somebody who would have been Caitlin Clark, perhaps had injuries not compromised her career. She's another one of those players. Has she been there 9 years like this McCormick guy has been at the University of Miami?
I think it's Becker's 3rd year. She's legit. She's been there 3 years. She had a lot of injury issues the first couple of years.
Yeah.
And if you watched, I didn't get to watch a lot of the game, but if you watch the highlights, she's spectacular. So she can do it. And she's not the chucker that Clark is. She's more get to the basket, get teammates involved.
Well-rounded game.
Play back and play defense. She's good defensively, whereas Clark is sort of a sieve defensively. I see this being an interesting game, and that's why the spread is what it is. I don't see Iowa just blowing through them. I presume they'll win because, again, the whistle will probably be in their favor. But if I was putting money on, I would put it on UConn because, again, I trust Gino Auriemma. We don't even know the fucking woman's name. Literally, she's the one coaching when there's a fucking like blurty, whatever the fucking name is.
Bluter
Like
or whatever,
when it
Boulder.
comes to coaches, January AM, I know the last few years they haven't been the cream of the crop in college, women's college basketball, but they're still there every year. You know them. They always have a Paige Beckers, or they always have someone like that. I don't see why that wouldn't be the case this year. Yeah, it's gonna be
That would
interesting.
really be deflating for the American public right now. That's so warmly embracing women's basketball, setting records. Tickets for the women's Final Four
More than the
double the
men's.
price of the men's Final Four. Nobody gives a shit that UConn is going to go out there and repeat in the men's side or on the men's side, or that you have this great entertaining matchup in the post there of two completely contrasting players, Zach Edey, big lurch type, 7'4", 300 pounds, and DJ Burns Jr., who has captured the imagination of the American public. Nobody cares about that shit. They're paying $2,000 a pop or whatever to get tickets in the nosebleed section somewhere in the middle of Arizona in the desert. Where's the women's Final Four? The men's is in Glendale. But I don't even know. And yet, if Caitlin Clark doesn't make it into the final game, I would bet money that the networks demand a consolation game at that point, just so they can have her on TV on the final day. They don't want to lose that revenue, that's for sure. But we'll see. I think the officiating will be very suspicious in this game, don't you? And it'll be interesting because a lot of people have been waiting for Gino Auriemma to get completely hosed by the officials, which he would claim he has been his entire career, even though he's got like 8,000 victories. But I think this is going to be watch the whistle. That's going to be the key in the Iowa game against the University of Connecticut. And I would imagine you will see what's the over-under on outrageously favorable calls going Caitlin Clark and Iowa's way. Want to put it at 3 and a hook? 3 and a hook.
Well, the funny thing is, it wasn't that Clark was getting a nice whistle, or they were letting her foul, and then it wasn't that. It was, and I didn't even notice it. That's why I was like, oh, the refs actually didn't get in the way. Clark just played great. It was they allowed Iowa's players to be a little bit more free defensively than they should have, because if they were calling the fouls on the girl that was defending Reese would have had more room to work. Reese was really quiet in the second half. Like,
yes,
again, it was a close game in the first half. Reese was a close game for most of the game.
That woman that came in, she could have been brought up on manslaughter charges.
And
what are you
that's the
talking
thing.
about?
If the refs are calling that, she's free and that girl's out.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's, will they let Iowa just get away with fucking murder like that?
This game has been predetermined, Lubie. I mean, put all of your money on the money line on Iowa here. There's no way they're going to let Caitlin Clark lose. All right, we have to get out of here. And the men's side, it does look like UConn is a juggernaut. They're favored big time over Alabama. Some of our friends say that we have respect for their opinion. Go ahead and maybe take a shot with the points in Alabama. That of the two teams that are getting a generous amount of points to compensate for the fact that they don't appear to be as good as their opposition, they're the two number one seeds that remain in UConn and Purdue. You're talking about NC State and Alabama. That Alabama has a better chance than the Cinderella of being within the point spread at the very least. And maybe even a slight chance of winning the game outright. Is that possible? Yes. Alabama, they get a bunch of threes going in, and they're streak shooting chuckers, these guys.
Yes.
It's like Mike D'Antoni imparted the philosophy to Nate Oates here, who is now crediting some analytic guy who told him, hey, you know what? The minute you get the ball, run down the court and shoot. That's it. So, I mean, if they do catch fire, which they have in streaks, Alabama, could they be dangerous enough to beat a team that is just pounding? It looks like the clubbing of seals when UConn takes the court against virtually any opposition in the last several months. Unbelievable. They did lose games, so it's always possible that you could tag them with a loss, but I don't know if you can do it at this point in time. We'll see. Alabama, though, many people think has the better shot to cover the 11.5 than NC State does of covering the 9.5. That's our gambling advice for today. Let's go, Marlins. Lose another one. When can you cash on this, Lubie? I guess once it's impossible for them to win 79 games, I would think that that's right around the corner. Yes, mathematical elimination is coming up soon also. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks so much. We'll have a Degenerate Friday. We'll get a little deeper into detail on some of our wagering ideas for the Final Four. And it's amazing that we're even including the women in that. I did want to add one note. How great was this? We were talking about this the other day on the show. It was tremendous when the Avalanche in Detroit in the NHL, they hated each other, and they would drop the gloves before the puck even hit the ice. It happened last night. Rangers Devils. This guy Rempe had been stirring up the pot. He's a very highly regarded rookie for the Rangers, who have the best record in hockey right now. They're the President's Trophy winner as we speak, with a few games left to go in the season. And does that forbear the idea that they're going to go out and win the Stanley Cup? I don't know. That team never does win that, as we saw that with the Panthers a couple of years back here in Florida. But this bad blood spilled over, and you have to love it. They dropped the gloves before the puck. The puck hadn't even hit the ice. All 10 players engaged in a fight that were on the ice. The only guys that were out of it were the goalies. They were too far apart. But you had 8 game misconduct penalties issued right away before the game was even 2 seconds old. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow, Degenerate Friday. A lot of fun and a wide open sporting scene. Many things happening on the sporting landscape, so lots to discuss. And also a special note, a programming note, Lubie. The great Johnny Chan, world-renowned poker player, 2-time winner of the World Series of Poker and featured in the movie Rounders, gave it that kind of viable credibility that this was a real story. Is going to join us on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Briefing. We'll talk a little poker face with Johnny Chan. He made that guy Seidel just shit in his pants. He's holding like a full house. He goes all in with nothing. 2-6 offsuit. Great guy, and we're looking forward to having him on our Tuesday edition of the Morning Briefing right here on NoFilter.net. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV.